Okay, thank you. I think I should stay here because I have to use the microphone. So, sorry. So thanks for inviting me. Today I will present you this work. The title is Impact of Head and Neck Cancer on the Income of Italian Employees. I decided to present you this work for three main reasons. Because I think it could be of your interest. I hope so. Then in the end you will tell me. The first one is because it's related to cancer. As you can see from the table, from the title is head and neck cancer. The second one is the data set we use, that is the WIP Salute database, that I think is very interesting. Later I will introduce you to it. And the third one is the methodology, that maybe again can be of your interest. This work was done in collaboration with Elena Farina from CPO in Grugliasco, the Service of Epidemiology, and in collaboration with the National Institute of Cancer in Milano. And this collaboration was done because this work was within a bigger project. As you can see in the bottom of the slide, the project is called BD for QOL. And it was a project related to big data for quality of life, especially for first people who had a diagnosis of head and neck cancer. Okay, so going to the introduction, maybe as you know better than me, the average survival from diagnosis of malignant tumor luckily has increased over years. And moreover, at the individual level, it improves as one moves farther from the time of the diagnosis. The problem is that people who got a diagnosis of cancer, usually after the diagnosis, has to face physical, psychological, and social challenges that are all related to their quality of life after cancer. And one of these main problems is related to the professional activity, because work, the job, the professional activity is related to the quality of life of these people. Especially patients with cancer of the head and neck region are a specific example of this, because head and neck, again, maybe as you know better than me, has a central functional role for many different activities like breathing, swallowing, and speaking. So what is already known from the literature is that cancer threatens the possibility of complete reintegration into the labor market after the diagnosis. The literature is focused mainly on returning to work, so working after the cancer diagnosis or not working. While little is known about the career after the diagnosis. This is where our work is focused. That is because WIP Salute database offers a unique opportunity because it has many different information regarding the longitudinal career of different people. And so we could monitor people during their career. So we could not only study the loss of employment following a cancer diagnosis, but also study the career development after the diagnosis. So the objective of this work was investigating the impact of head and neck cancer diagnosis on the weekly income of employees. So we could even involve people without a contract for the entire year. And we wanted to compare the year of diagnosis and the following 2 years with the year before the diagnosis. So this is the part that I thought would be of your interest, because the WIP Salute database is, as the acronym says, is the work history Italian panel that is extracted from administrative archives of the National Institute for Social Welfare, INPS. And it's a systematic sample of workers that are selected every year and that represents 7% of the reference population. Currently, the historical series cover just a period that is between 1985 and 2015. The workers represented in this database are all from the private sector, and manufacturing, construction, and services are the main representative ones. So this source of data is linked with other sources of information that are all related to health. That's why with Salute, we could merge together information related to the job and with the health. The first data source is it's derived by INAIL. So it is included accidents at work and occupational disease. Then we had the hospital discharges record derived from the Ministry of Health. And the last one is related to mortality and is derived from ISTAT. As you can see from this graph, maybe better compared to the graph before, even if it's in Italian and the quality is not perfect. As you may see from the timelines, the arrows in the different rows, there are different periods covered by the different databases. So that's why we decided to use even a shorter period of where to recruit workers, because we needed to have all of this information together. So we decided to include for each year between 2004 and 2013, employees older than 18 years old with at least one contract. So we decided with this period because we wanted to know the history of this subject 3 years before the diagnosis and 2 years after the diagnosis. And we defined as exposed the employees with an incidence diagnosis of head and neck cancer between 2004 and 2013. We used an algorithm that the National Institute of Cancer provided us to define this incidence diagnosis. And as I told you before, we used hospital discharge records. We decided to include people with an ongoing contract at the time of diagnosis, but we decided to include also people with a contract at least 1 month before or 1 month after the diagnosis, and that were employed in the year before the diagnosis, because we needed information regarding the job the year before the diagnosis. And then we define as possible unexposed individuals for each year employees without any kind of malignant tumors in the 3 years previous the signal year and 2 years after, and again that were employed in the previous year. Then we can go to the methodology. We decided to match exposed and unexposed individual considering a propensity score matching. Again, I think that many of you already know what a propensity score is, but it's a statistical technique that allows to match people that are similar in many characteristics, ideally in every characteristics except the exposure. So thanks to this methodology, we can say that the difference that we see in the outcome maybe should be related only to the exposure and not to other possible confounders. There are different kind of matching possibilities, as you can see from this graph. The first one is deciding if whether we want to use unexposed people for only one single exposed person or for more than one. So if we want to use the replacement of unexposed people or not. And we decided to not to do it. And so the second choice was to decide if using the greedy matching or the optimal matching. Now I have a question for you. Do you think that it's better the optimal matching or the greedy matching? Just from the name of the match. Okay, the optimal matching is better. From different point of view. Now I prefer.
This still didn't work.
Okay. No. Okay, I prefer that small. The question answer. Okay, I am already afraid of it. Okay, I prefer. Okay. I prepare an example, a small game, just to show you the difference between greedy matching, that is called also nearest available matching, or optimal matching. So this is an example from a quite old paper, but I think it's very clear. So if you want to match the women that are on the left side of the table with men on the right side of the table, if you use the nearest available match, you have to follow the order in which the subjects are ordered. So from the top to the bottom, you select the first one, and then you find a person in the second group, and then you go to the second one, and you have to find the best match in the second table. So if you were us, or if we were the authors of this paper, we have to match the subject A that has this log 10 grant funding, that in this case is the propensity score that we have, that is 5.7. And we want to match it with the best matching, so with the person with the closest value in the men group. So which man would you choose for the woman A? B overall, yes. Why? Okay, now we have to exclude the untreated, unexposed, or men B from the possible choices, and we have to find the best match for the subject B. Which one would you choose? What? That, okay. Yes, because it's the closest value. But as you can see now, we got to see person C has 3.4 as value. Which one would you choose in the other group? No, we cannot choose Z because it's without replacement. Okay. But this is the point. So we have to choose another person that has a value for the log 10 grant funding that is far from C, more far compared to Z. But we couldn't choose Z because we had to follow the order. Okay, then for D, we can choose Y. Applying the optimal matching, we don't have to follow the order. So we don't have to go from the top to the bottom, but we can do a comprehensive matching that allows to find the best matching, taking into consideration the others. So again, it's easy in this case because we only have 4 people. So subject A will go with subject B again, but we can match B with X instead of Z because we already know that for C, Z will be better, or for D. Okay? Have you understood the difference between greedy matching and optimal matching? So going to quantitative way of seeing this situation, what we see when we add up all the differences, individual differences, if we use the nearest available matching, we got 3.6. While with the optimal matching, we got a lower sum that is 3.4. Okay, so just to show you why we decided to use the optimal matching. And again, going back to this picture, we could decide which kind of optimal matching using. So the first one is matching one treated person, exposed, whatever we want to call him or her, with a fixed number of individuals. So 1, 2, 3, but for each individual, we need a fixed number of unexposed people. But since we had a huge number of possible unexposed people, we didn't want to force a single number because maybe there is one person that has similar characteristics only with one unexposed, while for the other one, maybe there are 100 people that are good enough to match with him or her. So that's why we decided to use this variable ratio matching. Okay, so we exact match for sex and year, meaning that we didn't put them in the propensity score, but it was exact. So men were with men and women with women. And then we consider a varying number of K unexposed for each exposed. We fixed as 1 the minimum of this K value and as 500 the maximum of this K value. The choice was depending on the computational power that we tried to measure during doing the analysis. And then we consider a caliper lower than 0.0. The variables that we used for the propensity score matching were related to individual characteristics such as age, nationality, and comorbidities, to job characteristics like position, working hours, type of contract, and job tenure, and also related to the firm of the worker, so size, geographical area, and economic sector. Then we matched for the annual income of the year before the diagnosis as for the number of job contracts in the 5 previous years. To evaluate the matching, you can see the graph on the right. So the circle one was the standardized difference before the matching. And as you can see, it is very far from 0, while the triangle is the standardized difference after the match. And as you can see, it was better compared to before. Then, after all this work, what we did was only a linear regression, one for each year, the year of the diagnosis and the 2 years after, where we compare being exposed to so having a diagnosis of head and neck cancer or not having it, adjusting for the income before the diagnosis. Okay. Due to the propensity score matching, that was a variable ratio matching, we consider weighted regression because depending on the number of unexposed, for each exposed, there was a weight applied. Then we had to delete those workers that change from being an employee to be a self-employed or professional or started receiving a pension or became inactive because we didn't have any information regarding this worker anymore. Then if a worker died, we again eliminated he or she from the analysis. And we conducted also analysis stratified according to sex, qualifications, so blue collar or white collar, and stage and site of the tumor. Going to the results, this table is full of numbers, but what I want you to notice is that we had about 600 workers with a diagnosis of head and neck cancer, but the sample is not very homogeneous according to the variables, because as you can see, the majority is male, blue collar, the most representative cancer site is larynx, and we stratified cancer stage as localized or locally advanced. We decided to delete at the beginning those workers who received a diagnosis of head and neck cancer with metastases because of the unfavorable prognosis, and so we were not able to see their development after 2 years. So jumping to the results, as you can see from this table, but I have figure later that I think can represent better these results. So we found that people with a diagnosis of head and neck cancer had a lower weekly income in the year of the diagnosis and even in the 2 years after. And this was similar trends were observed in all the stratified analyses, even with different magnitudes. What can be seen from this graph is that after the year of diagnosis, again, the wage seems to grow back again, but the level up 2 years after the diagnosis does not reach the level of healthy workers. And as you can see from the stratified analysis, these results were the same, even again with the different magnitudes, and were evident, I think, especially in men, in blue collar. Don't know if you can read the legends. Okay. And as we expected, the people with a locally advanced cancer had a stronger decrease in the wage compared to people with a localized cancer. Okay, so in conclusion, we observed a strong reduction in the average weekly wage during the year of diagnosis that was counterbalanced by a subsequent recovery in the following 2 years. Mean weekly income of head and neck cancer survivors 2 years after the diagnosis reached levels slightly higher compared to those prior to the diagnosis, but still they didn't reach the level of tumor-free workers. Men, blue collars, and survivors with a locally advanced head and neck cancer lose out more with respect to women, white collar, and localized tumor. And these results are in line with the existing literature, even if, as I told you before, there is no much evidence regarding this topic, and the evidence that is available is mostly related to breast or colorectal cancer, because there is no evidence regarding head and neck cancer. So what this study showed, that these quantitative results show that the financial troubles that people with cancer have to face after diagnosis is not only related to losing their job or maybe not being able to returning to work, but also to continue to work, but with a less wage. We try to explain these results And the first hypothesis was that income, especially in private workers and men blue collars, is made by two different portions. The first one is the first fixed portion that is related to the career advancement, and it changes it's low in time. So maybe the effect on this part of the wage could be observed only in the long term. While there is another portion that is the variable portion that relies on factors that are beyond the regular job scope. So, for example, overtime, night shifts, performance-based bonuses. So maybe people with a diagnosis of head and neck cancer who has to undergo to treatment, chemotherapy, radiotherapy, or surgical treatments, during that time cannot work more than normal hours, than the normal schedule. And so maybe without overtime, without night shift, they don't get the wage that usually they reach thanks to these bonuses. There are, of course, limitations. These are the ones that we found. So the problem was that we are only able to study the income of those who continue to work as employees in the private sector, because all the other people just disappear from our data set. So, for example, if someone just changed work, maybe to go in the public sector or working as a self-employment, we don't know anything about his working history. And then we define incident cases only from the hospital discharges record. So we didn't have the linkage with the cancer registry, so there may be mistakes related to the definition of the site, definition of the stage, and we couldn't do better than this. Finally, we can jump to the last slide. So what we thought is that it's important to study the complex dynamics and possible paths that are taken by cancer survivors. Maybe there is not employers or in the firms, there is not the possibility to change the mention of people with a cancer diagnosis, and so people with different capabilities after surgical treatments or other kind of treatments cannot find another possibility to continue to work in the same place with the same conditions. So maybe raising awareness among employers about these conditions that are faced by the cancer survivors can help to reintegrate them in the workforce after cancer.